Cordelia. I paid for the rehearsal dinner, the honeymoon suite deposit, the florist, and the cake tasting appointments. I drove my sister to every vendor meeting for 8 months. And when she walked down the aisle, her maid of honor gave a speech that mentioned everyone who made the day possible: her fiancé's mother, her college roommate, the wedding planner she hired 3 weeks before the date. My name wasn't in it, so I smiled through the reception, hugged her at the send-off, and drove home in the dark. And the next morning, I canceled every recurring charge attached to my card that still had her name on it. I want to tell you how I got there because it didn't happen in one moment. It happened in about 47 small ones I kept excusing. My sister, I'll call her by what she is, my older sister, got engaged 18 months ago on a Tuesday in October and called me crying happy tears from a restaurant in Charleston. I was the first person she called. I remember standing in my apartment kitchen, pressing the phone to my ear, genuinely thrilled for her. She'd been with her fiancé for 6 years. I liked him. I liked the idea of her being happy, and when she said, "I need you, Cord. I can't do this without you," I believed her completely. I should say here, I'm a project manager. That's not incidental. My whole professional life is built around making complicated things run smoothly, keeping timelines, managing budgets, following up with people who don't follow up with themselves. My sister knew this. That was, I think now, a large part of why she called me first. The engagement party was in November, a dinner at my parents' house. My mother had been sick the year before. Nothing critical, but enough to slow her down. Enough to shift the family equilibrium in ways none of us had fully named yet. My sister was the kind of person who orbited my mother's attention naturally, without effort, the way some people just pull light toward themselves. I was the kind of person who arrived early to set up the folding chairs. I set up the folding chairs for the engagement party too. I also made the charcuterie boards, drove 40 minutes to pick up the custom napkins she'd ordered from an Etsy shop, and put together the photo display with pictures of her and her fiancé across 6 years together. It took me most of Saturday. When the guests arrived, my mother introduced my sister as the one who always makes everything beautiful. I refilled the wine glasses and smiled. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I need you to understand the water I was swimming in before I even realized there was a current. By January, I was the unofficial wedding coordinator. My sister had a planner, a real one, with a website and a day of team, but the planner handled logistics. I handled my sister. I talked her off ledges about centerpiece choices. I researched photographers for 3 weekends straight and sent her a comparison spreadsheet with 17 vendors, their pricing, their review averages, their Instagram aesthetics. She picked one off the list, texted me a heart emoji, and sent the deposit request to my Venmo. I paid it. Of course I paid it. She said she'd pay me back after the wedding when they settled the gift money. I said okay. I have the screenshots. The venue deposit was next, $3,200. Just until we transfer our savings account, she told me. You know how banks are with new joint accounts. I knew. I transferred it anyway. By March, I had fronted just over $9,000 across photographer deposit, florist consultation retainer, save the date printing, the venue hold, and a tasting fee at the caterer she ultimately did not choose. She kept sending me heart emojis and voice memos saying things like, "You're literally the only reason this is happening," and "I don't know what I'd do without you." I was also, by this point, her maid of honor. She'd asked me in February with a little box containing a card that said, "Will you stand beside me?" and a small bottle of champagne. I said yes before I finished reading the card. What I didn't know in February was that she had also asked her college roommate to be her co-maid of honor. I found out in April from a group chat I was added to titled Bridal Besties, which included me, the roommate, and 2 of my sister's friends from her current city. The roommate had already planned a bachelorette trip to Nashville. She had a Pinterest board for it. She had already collected payment from the others. No one had asked me. When I texted my sister about it, gently, I thought, just asking where I fit in the bachelorette plans. She called me and said, with that particular patience people use when they're managing someone they consider difficult, "Cord, you live 3 hours away. It just made more sense to have Tatum handle the planning. You're handling so much of the real stuff." The real stuff. I sat with that for a minute. "Am I invited?" I asked. "Of course you're invited," she said, like the question was almost embarrassing. I drove 3 hours to Nashville in June. I paid for my own hotel room because the block of rooms Tatum had reserved was full. I bought my own ticket to the drag brunch they went to on Saturday morning because no one had put me on the spreadsheet. I found out about the spreadsheet when I arrived and asked what I owed, and Tatum looked at me with mild confusion and said, "Oh, we didn't think you were coming to that part." I came to all the parts. I smiled in all the photos. I got home Sunday night and sat in my car in the parking garage for about 20 minutes before I could go inside. I told myself it was growing pains. I told myself my sister was overwhelmed, that planning a wedding was stressful, that Tatum had just been more organized about the bachelorette, and it wasn't personal. I was very good at telling myself things. The bridal shower was in August. My mother hosted it at her house, which meant I arrived 2 days early to help set up. I strung lights on the back porch. I assembled favor bags. I built the mimosa bar from a tutorial I found online and drove to 3 different stores to find the right shade of blush ribbon for the welcome sign. The welcome sign said, "Celebrating my sister's name, hosted by my mother's name and Tatum, last name." I had co-hosted the shower. I had a receipt for the flower wall rental to prove it. My name was not on the sign. I pointed this out to my mother quietly in the kitchen while my sister was in the other room opening gifts. My mother looked at me with something soft and slightly tired in her expression and said, "Honey, don't make this about you today." There it is. That sentence. I have heard some version of it my entire life. Don't make this about you. Don't be sensitive. You're overthinking it. I had metabolized it so completely that I almost said "you're right" before I caught myself. I didn't say anything. I brought out another tray of mini cliches and watched my sister hold up a Dutch oven from her registry and glow. September was the dress fittings. My dress, the bridesmaid dress, a deep sage green, which I'll admit is a lovely color, required 3 alterations because the sizing ran inconsistent with the brand. I paid for the alterations. I drove 45 minutes to the boutique twice. The third time, the seamstress couldn't see me on the day my sister had scheduled because my sister had forgotten to confirm the appointment. I drove there anyway. I waited. I rescheduled. I also, in September, paid the florist's second installment $470 because my sister texted me at 11 at night saying she'd missed the payment window and the florist was threatening to release the date. I transferred it before I went to sleep. She said she'd sort it out with me after the wedding. October came quickly. The wedding was the second Saturday of the month, at a vineyard about 90 minutes from my parents' house. I arrived Friday afternoon to help with setup. The wedding planner was efficient and didn't need me for much, but my sister did, for reassurance, for a glass of water, for someone to find her earring back, for someone to confirm that her vows were good, that her hair was right, that she looked like herself. She did look like herself. She was beautiful in the way that people are on days they've dreamed about for a long time. That night at the rehearsal dinner, my future brother-in-law's best man gave a toast and mentioned the village it takes. He thanked the planner by name. He thanked his own mother by name. He looked at Tatum and called her the sister. My sister's name chose. He made a joke about spreadsheets that the room laughed at because everyone assumed Tatum had made them. I had made them. I had 17 of them. I smiled. I clapped. I cut my chicken and thought about nothing in particular, which is a thing I have learned to do in rooms where I'm performing the emotion I'm supposed to be feeling rather than the one I actually am. The wedding itself was, I'll be honest, genuinely lovely. The vineyard turned gold in the late afternoon light. My sister cried at the altar, the real kind of crying, the kind that ruins mascara and makes everyone's heart tighten a little. I cried too, standing slightly behind Tatum on the left side of the altar, which was also where I'd stood at the rehearsal, which nobody had thought to mention felt strange. It wasn't my day. I knew that. I wasn't asking for it to be. I just wanted to exist in it. At the reception, the speeches began after dinner. Tatum went last among the wedding party. Her speech was warm, funny, full of the kind of inside jokes that signal a real friendship. She thanked specific people: the planner, the venue coordinator, my sister's college friends who'd flown in, my brother-in-law's mother who'd made jam favors by hand. She did not mention me. My mother spoke too. Briefly, a toast more than a speech. She cried and said my sister was the joy of her life. She thanked everyone who helped make this day so beautiful. Everyone. I was in that everyone. That was all. I sat at the bridesmaids' table and drank my champagne and watched my sister dance with her new husband and thought, very clearly, not in anger, but in something quieter, I have been here the whole time and they have all just looked right through me. I danced at the reception. I helped bustle my sister's dress in the bridal suite. I made sure her bouquet got to the preservation box the planner had labeled and set aside. I did these things not because anyone asked, but because I am the person who notices what needs doing and does it without being asked, which is apparently a quality that reads as invisible. I drove home at midnight, 3 hours in the dark, which I've done enough times that I barely notice it anymore. I didn't decide anything that night. I was too tired. I decided the next morning when I woke up to my sister's Instagram post. It was a real golden hour footage from the vineyard, the kind of ambient slow-motion content that gets a million views because it looks like a movie. Her vows played over it in audio. The caption was long, one of those wedding day reflections, and it thanked people by name, her husband obviously, her parents, Tatum, my person, my sister by choice who made every part of this possible, the planner, the florist, the photographer. There was a line near the end, and to everyone who showed up for us, you know who you are. I knew who I was. I also knew who I wasn't, apparently. I put my phone down and made coffee and sat at my kitchen table for a long time. I wasn't crying. I was doing the kind of very quiet thinking that happens when something you've been explaining away finally stops having any explanation. $9,240. That's what I'd fronted total between deposits and payments and fees and the hotel room in Nashville and the alterations and the dinner I'd bought the bridal party in March because we were all in town for the venue walkthrough and I'd just picked up the check, $9,240, and I was everyone. I opened my banking app. Then I opened the list of recurring charges attached to the credit card I had added my sister as an authorized user on 4 years ago when she was in between jobs and needed to build her credit back up. I'd never removed her. It had never seemed urgent. There were 4 active subscriptions on her profile. A meal kit service she used weekly, a meditation app she'd mentioned to me once as a game changer, a cloud storage plan she'd added when she ran out of space for wedding photos, and a streaming service she shared with her fiancé. I removed her as an authorized user. It took approximately 90 seconds. Then I opened my Venmo and sent her an itemized note. Not a request, just a note, with every amount I had paid since January, categorized clearly the way I would categorize anything in a professional context, because I am a project manager and this is what I know how to do. Photographer deposit, venue hold, florist retainer, Nashville hotel, bridal shower flowers, dress alterations, florist second installment, caterer tasting, save the date printing, total $9,240. I wrote one line below the list, whenever you're ready, no rush. I didn't send it as a payment request. I sent it as a message. I wanted her to see the number. I wanted the number to exist somewhere outside my own head. Then I closed the app, refilled my coffee, and opened my laptop to catch up on the work I'd let slide during the weeks of wedding prep. She texted 3 days later. Not about the money, about the subscriptions. Hey, the meal kit thing isn't working. Did you change something? I responded, I removed you from the card. I should have done it a while ago, just forgot. 3 dots appeared. Then, oh, okay. Then an hour later, did something happen? I thought about how to answer that. I thought about it for a while. What I typed was, I sent you a message on Venmo. Let me know when you've had a chance to look at it. She called that evening. I let it go to voicemail. She left one 3-minute song, which I could see from the notification, and I didn't listen to it for 2 days. When I finally did, sitting in my car in the parking lot of a grocery store, it was what I expected and also somehow more than I expected. She started by saying she hadn't realized I'd paid so much. She said things had been so hectic. She said Tatum had taken the lead on so much, and she hadn't always known who was doing what. She had not known who was doing what. She had not known who was doing what. I had sent her 17 spreadsheets. She said she was sorry I felt left out of the wedding content. She said she'd thought about tagging me, but the caption was already so long. She said she'd post something separate, a story, to thank me properly. She posted the story that evening. It was a photo of us at the bridal shower, one I'd seen before, and the caption said, "Couldn't have done it without my sis. Love you, Cord. 12 hours." Then it disappeared from her story. 12 hours. I sat with that number the way you sit with a thing you're deciding whether to grieve or let go. I called my mother the next weekend, not to complain, but because I needed to hear a voice that wasn't inside my own head. We talked about other things for a while, her garden, a neighbor's tree that had fallen, the weather turning, and then she asked how I was doing since the wedding, and I said something honest for once. I said, I feel like I spent the last year pouring into something and came out the other side without anything to show for it. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know your sister loves you. She just gets overwhelmed." "I know," I said. "You've always been the steady one," she continued. "We lean on you because we trust you. That's a compliment, even when it doesn't feel like one. I have heard this my entire life, too. You're the steady one. You're the reliable one. We lean on you." What it means, translated, we take you for granted because you let us, and we prefer if you continued. "Mom," I said, "I paid $9,000 for this wedding." Another pause. Shorter this time. "I'm sure your sister will take care of it," she said. "Give her time to settle in. She just got married." I didn't push it. I never push it with my mother. I said I had to go, that I had work in the morning, which was true, and I loved her, which was also true, and I hung up and stood at my kitchen window looking at the street below for a while. Something settled in me then, not anger exactly, more like a decision that had been forming for months and finally finished forming. I had spent years being the infrastructure of this family, the person who showed up first and left last and handled the logistics and kept the records and followed up on the things no one else followed up on. And the understanding had always been unspoken, unwritten, just understood, that this was my role. That being reliable meant being taken for granted, that caring was supposed to be its own reward. I had run the math. The math did not support that understanding. I didn't blow anything up. I want to be clear about that. I didn't send a long text to my sister or post something on social media or make a scene. That's not how I operate. I operate with spreadsheets and timelines and quiet, documented action. So I built a single folder on my desktop. I put everything in it. The Venmo screenshots, the bank transfer records, the texts where she'd asked me to cover payments, the emails confirming deposits, the Nashville hotel confirmation, the dress alteration receipts, the photo from the bridal shower welcome sign with my name missing. I titled the folder, "For My Own Records." Then I started, slowly and without ceremony, withdrawing from the infrastructure role. The family group chat had a thread called Holiday Planning 2024 that I had, in previous years, organized and driven forward. I read the thread. I did not contribute to it. When my mother texted me separately asking if I could take the lead on Thanksgiving again, I said, for the first time, "I can't do it this year, Mom. I'm stretched thin." I felt the strangeness of the words as I typed them, like wearing clothes that didn't quite fit yet. She said, "Oh, okay, honey, no worries." No worries. Just like that. I had spent years believing that if I stopped holding things up, they would collapse. They didn't collapse. They just adjusted. My mother figured out Thanksgiving. My sister planned Christmas with her new husband's family. The world continued without my project management. That is a clarifying thing to discover. The money conversation happened eventually. My sister came to visit in November. Not specifically to talk about it, she was passing through for work, and we had dinner at a place near my apartment, a small Italian spot I like, where the tables are close together and the lighting is the kind that makes everyone look like they're in a memory. She brought it up herself, which surprised me. She said she'd been thinking about it, that she knew it had been a lot, that things had gotten away from her during the planning. She said she and her husband were getting settled financially, but she wanted to start paying me back, a little at a time. I said that would mean a lot. She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I should have been better," she said. "I know I leaned on you too hard." I looked at her. My older sister. The one who called me first from Charleston. The one who has always pulled light toward herself without trying. "You did," I said. gently but directly. And I let you, for a long time, that's on both of us. She didn't argue, she just nodded and looked at the candle between us and said, I'm sorry, Cord. It wasn't everything. It wasn't the speech at the reception or my name on the welcome sign or the 12-hour Instagram story. It wasn't the Nashville hotel room or the 3 hours in the parking garage or the 20 minutes sitting in my car after I drove home from the wedding. But it was real. It was her, without performance, without an audience, saying the thing. I took it. I'm not someone who makes dramatic exits. I'm not someone who cuts people off or sends ultimatums or burns bridges for the satisfaction of watching the smoke rise. I am, as established, the steady one, the reliable one, the one who keeps records and shows up and handles things. What I've learned, slowly and with a lot of parking garage time, is that being steady is not the same as being silent. That being reliable is not the same as being available for anything, at any cost, without question. That the one everyone leans on is a role, not an identity, and roles can be renegotiated. I didn't lose my family, I didn't want to, but I did something I should have done years earlier. I stopped making it so easy to overlook me. I started saying no to things that cost me more than they gave back. I stopped volunteering for the organizational labor that no one saw. I let some things be imperfect and watched to see if anyone else stepped in. Mostly, they did. I made a payment agreement with my sister, written down, which felt strange and also necessary. She's paid me back about a third of it so far. I believe she'll continue. If she doesn't, I have the records. And I know now that I'll use them, not out of cruelty, but because I have learned the hard way that kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's just a bill with no due date. The folder on my desktop is still there. I haven't deleted it. But I changed the name. I called it Evidence That I Was Here, because I was, the whole time. And if no one else is going to put my name on the welcome sign, I'm going to keep my own record of what I built. The bridal shower flowers are in it, every receipt, every transfer, every text where she said, I couldn't do this without you, which turns out to be truer than she knew. Just not in the way she meant. I've thought a lot about what I would tell a younger version of myself. The one stringing lights on a porch at 10 p.m., the one driving 40 minutes for custom napkins, the one sitting in a Nashville hotel room she booked herself the night before a bachelorette she almost didn't know she was invited to. I would tell her, the work you do is real. The love behind it is real. But love behind it is real. But love is not a blank check, and showing up is not an obligation without limit. You are allowed to ask for your name on the sign. You are allowed to say, I can't do it this year, without an apology attached. You are allowed to want something back. You are not the infrastructure. You are a person. There's a difference. And the sooner you know it, the sooner everyone else will too. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what actually happened. Not the wedding, not the welcome sign, not the 12-hour Instagram story. What happened before all of that? The pattern that made all of it possible. Because nothing my sister did came out of nowhere. It came out of years of me making it easy. Every time I picked up a check without being asked, every time I absorbed a slight without naming it, every time I heard, don't make this about you, and folded myself smaller, I was teaching everyone around me what I was available for. I was setting a price for my presence and writing in zero. That's not something I say with bitterness. I say it because it's the most honest thing I've learned from this whole experience. The way people treat you is partly a lesson you've given them, not because you deserve it, not because you asked for it, but because you kept showing up on terms that only worked for them and no one had any reason to renegotiate. The cause and the effect in my story are almost uncomfortably clear. I made myself indispensable and invisible at the same time. I did the work of 10 people and then stood outside the frame while someone else got credited for the photograph, and it kept happening. The engagement party, the Nashville trip, the bridal shower, the reception speech, because I kept letting it happen. I kept calling it love. I kept calling it family. I kept calling it the kind of person I am, as if my character required me to absorb whatever was offered. It doesn't. That's the thing I wish I'd understood earlier. Being a good person doesn't mean being a quiet one. Having integrity doesn't mean swallowing your own name. What I know now, in a way I didn't before, is that real generosity requires honesty. Not just honesty with other people, honesty with yourself. About what you actually want, what you actually need, what you are and aren't willing to keep doing. The moment I started telling the truth to my sister, to my mother, eventually to myself, things shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, but they shifted. My sister is paying me back. Slowly, consistently, which is more than I expected when I sent that Venmo message. I think the act of naming it, putting the number in writing, making it visible, did something that no amount of quiet resentment ever could have. It made the reality real for both of us. And I think that's the thing worth carrying forward. Not anger. Not the folder on my desktop, though I'm keeping that. Just the understanding that clarity is a form of care for yourself and, eventually, for the people around you. When you stop performing a role you've outgrown, you give everyone else the chance to show up differently, too. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. But at least you know. Cordelia didn't win anything. Neither did I. What we both did was stop pretending the current arrangement was fine when it wasn't. And it turns out that's not a dramatic act. It's just an honest one. It's just finally deciding that your name belongs on the sign you built, and if no one else is going to put it there, you keep your own record. That's not a small thing. For some of us, it takes years to learn it's allowed.